In this video, we're going to be talking about Speckle. I'm going to be showing you how you can utilize Speckle in order to transfer your Rhino files into Revit, but with proper Revit geometry. So it's going to turn Rhino elements or Rhino geometry into actual native Revit geometry. Let's go. Speckle's mission is to make the architecture, engineering, and construction industry better. Why? Well, because it's a fragmented industry. There is a lack of communication and collaboration, leading to slow and bulky processes. There is no easy way to work on workflows that matter in an efficient and productive way. So, what is Speckle? Well, Speckle is a one-stop shop empowering everybody to access, share, and process their creations without boundaries by bridging the gap between digital creations and physical reality. Speckle is the driving force towards an open ecosystem and a better built environment. So how does Speckle actually work? Well, let's say you're working on a wild design, some Zaha Hadid, Frank Gehry stuff. And doing this in Revit would be inconvenient if we're being generous, or impossible if we're being realistic. So you would start a project like this in something like Rhino, and you would create this interesting shape. And now it's time to continue the project, and you do want to utilize the full power of BIM, so you will be using Revit. But when you get that Rhino geometry inside of Revit, it's dead useless geometry and you can't really do much with it. And then you would have to basically use it just as an underlay and model everything in Revit again. Well, if you want to avoid that, you can use Speckle. So what does Speckle do? Well, we have the main Speckle manager that has this really nice viewer, which we can use for collaboration. But more importantly, we have these plugins called connectors. Now, you install these plugins in the software that you want to communicate between. In this case, we have Revit and we have Rhino, so we will install a connector for Revit and also a connector for Rhino. So what we then do is we take our Revit project and then we pull all of our project data from that Revit file. So what does that mean? That means you're pulling all of your floor types, all of your wall types, all of your columns, families, so everything that you need from that Rhino file, the main project information you're pulling from Revit into Speckle. And then you go to the Rhino connector and you pull in all of that Revit data, and you use the Speckle connector in order to assign which type of Revit family is going to work with which part of Rhino geometry. So you have a floor in Rhino, you assign a proper floor type from Revit. You have a wall, you assign a proper wall type. You have some additional families, you do the same. Then you publish that Rhino model to Speckle, and then you can use the viewer in order to communicate with other team members and work on the project there if necessary. But then when you want to actually get it into Revit, you open up the Revit Speckle connector and you pull in all of this data. Now, because all of the proper families have already been assigned inside of Rhino, inside of Revit you're going to see this really cool animation as Speckle is pulling in all of that geometry from Rhino and building your Revit model with the assigned Revit elements. And now all of the walls have the proper layer structure, they have all of the parameters. You can change the shape of that wall if you want, you can change the layers. Same thing goes with the floors, and also other families are properly categorized and set up with actual Revit families. It's a really amazing process, and I'm going to be showing you everything step by step. Now, of course, you're not limited only to Rhino and Revit. You can use this both with Grasshopper, Power BI, SketchUp, Excel, AutoCAD, Dynamo, and all of these that I haven't really used before. So anyways, if you want to try Speckle for yourself, I'm going to be leaving the link down in the description of this video, and then also up in the cards above, and then also there among the links there is a link to SpeckleCon, the event which is going to be held on November 14th and 15th. So if you want to sign up for that, the link is there, as I said, in the description of this video. And full disclosure, this is a sponsored video. So now, without any further ado, let's jump into it. And here we are at, well, Google. So I have Googled Speckle Systems, and here we have the Speckle website. And once we go there, you will see the download button both here and then up here. So it's going to take you to the same page. So if I click here on download, it's going to go to the Manager for Speckle download page. So the Manager for Speckle is kind of your main, well, manager that you download, and there you can install all of the different connectors for any software that you want to use with Speckle. So I'm just going to click here and download this for Windows. Now I already have it installed, so I'm just going to bring it up here. This is what this looks like when it's installed. It's a simple installation process. Just hit next many times, and this is what we get. So here, if I go to connectors, you can see these are all of the available connectors. Now, in this case, for this video, I'm going to be working with Revit and Rhino. So I want to install the connectors for Revit and Rhino. So I can just click here on install for Revit and then do the same thing for Rhino. As you can see, the download is really quick, and the installation process is also quick as well. And then once those are installed, well, then we can get started working with Speckle in both Rhino and Revit. And here we are in Rhino. This is the model that I'm going to be using. As you can see, we have this tower and we have the site. So among layers, we have for the site, obviously we have the buildings, some greenery pads, roads, trees, and so on. And then for the building itself, we have the floors, the walls, the furniture, which is down here. And then we also have the facade, which are these kind of vertical elements, and the columns, which are the diagonal or angled elements. So the next step is going to be to actually send this or stream this to Speckle, because we now want to view it in the Speckle viewer. So what I'm going to do here is just go to the Speckle panel. This is what we get when we install the connector. Then we go here to the create new, and this is the new stream. Here we can name it. Let's just call it the Balkan Tower. Now you can add a brief description if you want. You can make it either private or you can make the link shareable. It's really up to you. And then let's click here on create. So now we come to this menu where we can actually send the model. And what we're doing now is we're converting this Rhino geometry into open source Speckle geometry, which can then be used with any other software that has a Speckle connector. So this is the process that's going on right now, and obviously we're going to be also able to see this in the Speckle web browser viewer. And now as soon as it's done, we get this sent. I can just click here and it's going to open up this in the web browser. And here we are in the web browser viewer, so we can see we have that same model now loaded in. And then here you can see all of the tools that you would need for a web browser based viewer. So this is going to mean zoom extents, camera projection, so you can go from perspective to parallel and then back to perspective. We have section box, so you can cut your model however you like. We have views, so you can get the top view in this case, for example, and then we can have this sort of perspective floor plan view. Now let's just disable the section box. Then we have the lighting settings, most importantly the elevation and azimuth of the sun, and we also have this explode feature, which allows us just to see how the model is built. Now we can just reset it by clicking here. Now let's say I want to communicate with other team members that are working on this project. Well, the first step is to actually add them to the project, and for that I'm just going to go one step back here to the Balkan Tower. Then I can go to manage, and here I can search for either use usernames or emails. So I'm just going to paste the email of my colleague that I'm working on this project with, and then I'm just going to invite her on the project, and this has now been sent. And as you can see, I have set this to be as a user, so she can actually edit. Now we can also set it to be owner or just a viewer. Okay, now I'm just going to escape out of here and then go back to the model itself. Now I can actually see my colleague here in the model as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this and then click on new comment, and then here I can just add a comment. So I can say, for example, this area looks a little bit empty, and just send that comment. So it's going to stay here. And I can see now that she's typing. And now we have another comment here. So could we add some more trees in that area? Yeah, makes sense. Let me try that. So now I'm going to go back to Rhino. And here in Rhino, I'm just going to copy some of these trees around. So let me select this one, go to copy. Now let's send this back to Speckle Viewer. So I'm just going to click here on send. And now I'm back at the web application. Here I'm simply going to refresh this model. And now let me send another comment. So like this. And then let's send that. And now we have an answer. As you can see, this looks much better. So once we have resolved this issue, doesn't really make sense to leave these comments. So I can just click here to resolve this thread. And there we go. Now we have improved the model with the help of our team members. And one more thing to show is that whenever we click send from the connector, here in Speckle Viewer, we're going to get an update. So we're going to get all of these versions available here. So for example, in this case, we have already created one new version. It's the latest one. And we can view the changes. So we can kind of track progress and see what's going on, what has been changed or modified in the model. So here we can see we have 20 added in the new version. It's this green color, so you can see these lighter kind of green trees are the ones that have been added. So it's nice to kind of be able to track progress of what's going on and what has been changed in the model. Moving forward, the next step is going to be to actually load this model from Rhino into Revit. Now I want to load in my site separate from the actual building itself. So for that, while we're still here in the viewer, I'm going to go back to the Balkan Tower project, and then here I'm going to go to new, and then I'm going to create a new model, or actually two new models, one for the site and one for the building. So let's call this one site, click on create, and then let's create a new one. So this will be the building, click create, and now we have these two which we're going to use to create a separate model for the site and for the building. Now we're back in Rhino, and for this next step we're going to be using the Speckle Mapper. Now if you cannot find it here, you can just search for it. So just type in Speckle Mapper or Speckle Mappings, and then it's going to open up that dialog. In this case, I already have it opened up. So here we have multiple steps. The first one is to select certain elements. So I can just come to the model, and then I can select multiple elements, and it's going to just appear here how many we have. Then we have the mapping source. Now what this basically does is it's telling Speckle what do we want to use this geometry for. So for example, if I select certain surfaces, I can then say, okay, inside of Revit we want to map this as a floor, or perhaps some geometry we can map as certain component families or something like that. So this is a really important step. So that's what we have for that. And then we have the apply mappings, where we can see what we can do with the selected elements, and then once we hit apply mappings, it's just going to apply that to that geometry. Now I'm going to select all of the buildings. The easiest way to approach that is just to find buildings here, right click, and then let's select the sublayer objects. Here in the mapper we can see we have 11 elements selected. Then we have the Revit element to map option, and here it's set to direct shape. So what this basically means is direct shape is geometry that has been generated through Revit API. So this is going to program the geometry. It's not native Revit geometry that you can model as like an extrusion or something like that. Next we have the name, so I'm just going to leave that at buildings, and then for the category I'm just going to set that to site. And of course, you can see we have all of the Revit categories here. So let's just leave this as site, and then I'm going to apply mappings. And now I'm going to continue assigning all the rest of the elements for the site. So for the greenery, let's assign that to topography. Then for the paths, those I'm going to set to the site category. For the roads, that can go in the roads category. And for trees, yeah, I'm just going to leave those out for now. Next, we're going to go back to Speckle, and now here for the model, I'm going to select the site, so that's the one we have created recently, and then for selection, instead of everything, I'm going to choose by layers, and then here I can say, okay, on the site, I want buildings, I want greenery, I want paths, roads, and trees. We're just going to leave that for later. So once we have assigned all of that, now we can just click send. And now if I open this back up, as you can see here, we have that site model. This is what that looks like. So we have everything which we have previously mapped and then selected to go into the site model. And now it's finally time to jump into Revit, and here I have the Speckle connector active. Now you can turn it on here on the Speckle tab. When you install the connector, it's going to appear like this as this tab, and then you just click here and it's going to open up this panel. Okay, so once we have that opened up, you can see here we have the Balkan Tower project, so I'm just going to click on that, and then for the model I'm going to switch from main to site, and then I'm going to switch to receive because I want to receive this geometry. As you can see, we can view it here. If I drag my cursor over it, it's going to drag like that, and then when I click on receive, it's going to start the work, and as you can see, it has basically received that model. Now I can switch this to the shaded view. As you can see, the materials are properly mapped. If I select one of the buildings, as you can see, that's under site for the category. This is under topography. Then we have the roads, which are roads, obviously, as we've set them up. This is the site, and so on. So everything has been properly mapped. So when we bring it into Revit, we have proper categories for all elements. Okay, so now moving forward, I also like to include those nice trees that we had in that Rhino model. I want to have it here in Revit. However, for your Revit trees, they're obviously going to be Revit families, and I want those trees to be mapped out as a specific family and type inside of Revit. So we have to find a way to tell Rhino by using Speckle what family and type we want to assign to those trees from Rhino. So what I'm going to do in order to achieve that is I'm going to switch here back to send. Then I'm going to add a new branch, and then let's call this one project info. So I'm just going to type that and then click create. And instead of selecting everything, I want to select just project information. And here for project information, I only want levels and families and types. So we're basically telling Rhino, okay, so these are the families and types we have in Revit, and we can use those to map those trees. And now I'm just going to click on send. There we go. Now this has been sent, and I can go back to Rhino. Here we're going to first select all of the trees, so I'm just going to find trees and then select all of them. Then let's go to the Speckle Mapper, and now this is where the choose stream button comes to play. So I'm just going to click on that. First we want to define the stream, which is going to be the Balkan Tower. Then for the branch, I'm going to pick the project info branch, the one which we have just created, and then click OK. And then down here we have the family instance or new Revit family. I'm just going to pick the instance, and now we define what this Rhino model or all of these Rhino trees are going to turn into when they come into Revit. And then here I can choose this RPC Revit tree, and then for the tree type I'm going to go with something a bit smaller. So yeah, let's go with this one, for example, and then let's just apply the mappings. Okay, then let's go back to Speckle, open the Balkan Tower project. I'm going to go back to the site project, and then for the selection, Let's see. Okay, so current selection. No, let's go with layers. And then I'm just going to export basically the same thing that we had before, but I'm also going to add the trees. And then with all of that, let's scroll down here and then click on send. And once this is sent, we can view this online. So let me open up the viewer, and then here you can see that all of the trees have been transported here into our site model. But more importantly, when we go back into Revit and then here, if I just go back to the received cards, so let's go here to this one, and then let's go here to receive, and then let's pick that site. And yeah, it's just going to update, so let's then click on receive. And as you can see, now it's receiving all of the data, so it's populating our Revit model, but instead of those trees that were there in Rhino, here it has converted them to these Revit families. So we have made that a successful conversion. Okay, now for the fun part, which is to actually map out this building using the Speckle Mapper in Rhino. So the first step is going to be the floors. So the floors are all of these horizontal elements, and obviously we want to turn them into Revit floors. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find floors here, right click, and then select all of them. And then here in the mapper, I'm just going to set these for default floors and apply the mapping. Now, of course, you can assign the level and the family, but just for the sake of saving time for this tutorial, we're going to leave this as the default floor. Okay, now moving forward, let's set the columns. So the columns are these curves, so these diagonal shapes. So what I'm going to do is find the column layer here, select all of these columns that we have in this Rhino project. Now for these, I'm going to assign them to default columns as well, and then apply that mapping. Moving forward, let's now talk about the walls. So for the walls, we actually have two options. So we have these long vertical walls, but we also have this curtain wall down at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'll first select these walls here on top. Let's go to the other side. This one, and I think we have this one as well. Okay, so once I have selected all of these walls, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to assign these to a profile wall. Then let's set it as a basic wall, so it's not going to be a curtain wall, obviously. And then for the type, let's see, I'm going to pick the generic 200mm masonry wall family for that, and then let's apply that mapping. Now for the walls down here, the curtain walls, let's go here to the layers, right click, and then select all of the walls, and then I'm simply going to remove these ones from the selection. So now I have only these selected, and again, these are going to be profile wall. For the family, I'm going to go with the curtain wall, and then for the type, let's go for the M storefront, and then the level can be set at level 1, and let's apply that mapping as well. Then moving forward, we have the facade shape. So as you can see, these louvers, or however you want to call them, this is the facade. We want to bring that in, obviously. So what I'm going to do is select that, so right click, select the facade, and then this is going to be direct shape. For the name, let's call it fancy facade, and then for the category, we can go with the curtain wall mullions. I think that's the category that fits here perhaps the best. And then let's apply that mapping as well. And finally, for the furniture, these tables here, let's find the furniture, select all of them, and then instead of using an existing family, what I'm going to do is create a new family under the furniture category, and then just apply that mapping as well. Okay, so once we have mapped out the entire building and all of the categories that we have inside of that building, we can go back here to Speckle. Let's go back to the original project, and then here let's send, and this is going to be the building, and we're not going to be sending everything, so I'm just going to go with layers, and then here let's select the building floors, walls, furniture, facade, and columns. So this is what I want to send, and then once we have all of that, I can scroll down and then click on send. And now, once this has been sent from Rhino, I can just bring up Revit. Here, I'm just going to go back to the main project, and then let's go to receive, and the model is going to be the building model. And now let's click on receive, and it's going to start actually building the building in front of our eyes, which I think is really cool. So it brought in the floors, the walls, now it's bringing in all of the furniture. As soon as that is done, now it's building the facade, and here it's bringing in and building the column structure around this building, which is really cool. And there we go. Now we have received the model. Now what I especially am impressed with is the fact that these are now actual Revit elements, so Revit geometry. If I select this wall, you can see it's this wall, but we can also go and edit the layer structure of this wall if we want. We can also edit the profile, so if we want to do something with it, we can easily change it. It's not like a dead geometry as you usually get when you load in non-native Revit geometry. It actually converts everything into native Revit geometry, or not everything, but all of these elements that have been mapped. So for the floors as well, I can go into edit boundary. I can edit the boundary of that floor. I can go into edit type. I can play around with the layer structure. And of course, the rest of the elements have been mapped to the correct categories. Now we have completed the transfer of elements from Rhino to Revit by using the Speckle connectors. However, what if you want to bring the site and the building models together inside of the Speckle viewer? Well, you can do that. So here I have opened up just the site. So if I just go back here to the Balkan Tower, open up the site, and then let's say I want to bring in the building model here as well. So I can just go here to models, click on add, so it's going to show me all of the models that we have. I'm going to click then on the building model, and it's going to start bringing that in, and now we have that building model. Also here we can see for each of these like the version histories and everything that has been done with all of these models over time as we're working on them. And this is where we're going to be concluding this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Again, I would like to ask you to check out Speckle. The link is going to be in the description of this video, and then also up in the cards above. And then also make sure to check out SpeckleCon. It's happening on November 14th and 15th. Also, please tell me in the comment section below, have you enjoyed this video and would you like to see more content about Speckle in the future?